Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Illuminati, the man who rules the world, takes on the head of the global elite in this all-new action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' Illuminati in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, because we're having us a barbecue. A few days ago, African migrants rallied outside New York City's City Hall demanding better treatment.
Today, hundreds of black migrants, many from African countries, showed up at City Hall demanding better treatment. They say they just want a job and basic shelter.
And Chopper 2 was overhead this afternoon, showing the large group outside City Hall just how many people this issue is impacting. The steps of City Hall also packed. CBS 2's John Diaz reports now on the changes that they're calling for.
Every migrant we spoke with has something in common. They want to work. Right now, they're trying to cut through all the red tape that's stopping them, asking local leaders to put pressure on Washington, D.C. to make a change. As dozens rallied on the steps outside City Hall and hundreds showed up in support nearby inside the council chambers, tears were shed for all black migrants impacted by what advocates are calling unfair treatment.
They are here to show you that they belong and that they are here and that they should not be erased. Please listen to them.
Tuesday, City Council members held its first hearing to learn more about the experiences black migrants have been going through in New York.
Black migrants have reported verbal and physical abuse due to the color of their skin.
Federal immigration laws are either slowing down the process for these migrants to get working permits, or depending on what country they come from, it makes them ineligible.
But when they give our work permits, we can work and take care of ourselves.
Governor Kathy Hochul has tried to speed along the process. These migrants are also up in arms over language access barriers and temporary shelters, saying 30 days isn't long enough. This mother and her two kids have been staying at the Humanitarian Relief Center at Floyd Bennett Field, but she says the city should be providing more assistance.
What I expect to have like a help from American people, I did not see that.
The Relief Center continues to be a point of contention for Republican Council member Vicky Palladino, who says the city is already giving the migrants too much.
This is absolute insanity at its finest.
And most migrants we saw out here today were young men, but also we saw some families, including children and even some infants. From City Hall, John Diaz, CBS 2 News.
Now, according to reports, hundreds of African migrants went to City Hall to rally and protest, demanding better treatment. And according to these African migrants who went to rally outside of City Hall and on the steps of City Hall, as the City Council had a meeting with them and their advocates, many of these African migrants are saying that they are demanding that the city government put pressure on the federal government to accelerate working papers so that they can go to work. And they are also demanding that the city give them better treatment and give them better shelter than the shelters they are currently staying in. Now, this whole protest is one that is an insult because it basically is many of these African migrants who are now being spun as in the mainstream media as black migrants to try to associate them with foundational black Americans. This whole protest is an insult to all foundational black Americans here in New York City, because most of us foundational black Americans will not be given access to the city council to address our grievances. But these migrants who entered the country illegally, they can go and rally a protest to the city council, which is predominantly black, and they can go out here and get their demands heard by the city council. Now, that's an insult to foundational black Americans who 3 years ago couldn't get any support as related to lifting a vaccine mandate that was extended by black New York Mayor Eric Adams that kept 1 million New Yorkers, mostly black, out of work. The black New Yorkers couldn't get access to their city council to get this unilaterally enforced vaccine mandate overturned that kept 1 million black New York taxpayers from being able to go to work. However, 100 or so African migrants who entered the country illegally and are not citizens, and some are not even eligible for anything, they can go and have a rally on the steps of New York City's City Hall, and they can go and have a meeting with the City Council to make demands for better treatment. And that just shows how foundational black American voters here in New York City are being mistreated, because instead of making the foundational black American voter a person who is a priority in a blue city that says it's not racist, the foundational black American voter is basically put in the back of the line, and people who entered the country illegally, who are not citizens and in some cases are not even eligible for any sort of benefits, believe they have the audacity to go out and be able to make demands from a country and local government that they are not even registered to be a voter and a part of the political process. That is the latest slap in the face to foundational black American voters here in New York City. You got a bunch of Africans who want to now say that they are black migrants, wanting to try to make themselves the face of black people, and want to go out here and believe that they have the audacity to make demands for our tangibles that black New Yorkers' tax dollars paid for. These people basically, again, have a lot of gall to go and believe that they can make demands for so-called better treatment when in actuality they are receiving the same treatment that every person in this country who entered it illegally would receive. Now, when it comes to the whole process as related to working papers, there's nothing that the city can do at all regarding that process. No, that's a process run by ICE, and that's a process run by Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, and there is no way to speed that process up, because according to Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, a person has to be residing in this country for 6 months, and they have to be residing in this country for a minimum of 6 months in order to be considered eligible for these papers. Moreover, this entire process takes over a year, and most people know this process, but you have these African migrants having the audacity to believe that they have a right to demand that this process be accelerated in a country where they are not citizens. I mean, that takes a lot of gall to sit there and say, oh, I'm demanding that you accelerate your process because you want a job. Well, you don't have a right to tell any sovereign nation how to accelerate their processes because you came here illegally. No, you don't have a right to tell any government how to do this at all. And it's a big insult to demand that you get working papers to work jobs when the millions of foundational black American men like myself are having a hard time in this city, and many foundational black American men like myself have wanted jobs for years, and we are legal citizens who have a right to work, but these migrants want to say that they have a right to work before us, and that just shows how the sense of entitlement has been enabled by New York City's local politicians like Eric Adams, the mayor, and the city council, that these African migrants want to say they have a right to work before a foundational black American man who has struggled to try to find any work in this city. And they want to believe they have that right before us. And again, that's an insult to foundational black American people, especially heterosexual foundational black American men. They want to make the migrant a priority, but they want to leave foundational black American men like myself, who have been out of work for over 15 years, don't want to give us any work, don't want to hire us for a job, don't want to make us a priority. We would be the ones who would actually be the ones actually paying taxes in this city, actually being able to contribute to the economy, actually being able to build New York's really crumbling whole economic base. But you have a group of people who entered the country illegally, who want to go out here and be able to work off the books or be able to send money to Western Union, to their own country. They want to go out and say they have a right to work before a foundational black American man and a foundational black American woman, and they want to believe that this is a tangible, they have the audacity to demand. And again, that's an insult to all of us foundational black American New Yorkers who have been working in this city and have had to deal with our rights being curtailed by policies like the Adams administration's previous vaccine mandate, which again denied 1 million black New Yorkers the right to work. But you have all of these Africans, again, believing that they're going to call themselves black Africans and want to go and push themselves in front of the line, in front of foundational black Americans. And then as they're pushing themselves in the front of the line in front of us, want to express their contempt for us by saying things that we are lazy. Well, we have been working in this country and dealing with racism and white supremacy in this country for over 400 years. And the minute these African migrants have to experience just a few moments of that same racism, they want to sit there and say they want to make demands. And again, that's an insult to foundational black Americans. You want to sit there and make all sorts of demands for tangibles you are not entitled to because you are not citizens. You are not even eligible for even many of these benefits, even under government policy. Again, an insult to foundational black Americans, because what they want to do is go out and present them as the face of black people. But the whole thing is, for you to go to a black city council and go to a black mayor and make yourself a priority, again, that's an insult to foundational black Americans. And an even bigger insult to foundational black Americans is this demand for so-called better shelter. Now, many of the migrants basically have overwhelmed the shelter system, and they have been given priority for shelter over many of the homeless New Yorkers, including homeless veterans who have served this country. And that's an insult because many of the homeless, a good 80% of the homeless today, are foundational black Americans. And many of those black people are homeless because, one, many of those black people are having a hard time finding a job due to the racism we encounter as related to the white feminist HR brick wall. And two, many black people have a hard time finding shelter because rents have gone into astronomical levels. But we have all of these migrants Africans who entered the country illegally, and what they want to say is they want better housing. And that word better housing means actually being able to get housing in federal Section 8 buildings. So what these people want to do again is jump in line in front of foundational black Americans, who are a majority of New York's homeless population. And most of that homeless population is primarily because most foundational black Americans are not able to find jobs due to the gynocentric white feminist HR brick wall that keeps most foundational black Americans from being able to access the job market and be able to go to work. That's the reason why you have so many homeless individuals in New York City, and many foundational black Americans are still on waiting lists for programs like Section 8 and public housing, and still are waiting to get the tangible of housing. But you have all of these migrants who decided they wanted to enter the country illegally and decided they wanted to have their American dream based on what they saw in TV shows like Seinfeld, Friends, and Sex and the City, and they want to go out here and believe they have a right to demand to jump in line in front of black people and believe that they deserve so-called better treatment. Well, I hate to break it to all of those people who entered the country illegally who made that rally. Well, in white supremacist America, when it comes to black people, you have to deal with a lot of anti-black racism, and part of that is that black people are at the bottom in this whole hierarchy. And again, what they want to do is use African migrants to be buffers to keep black people from being able to get tangibles, and that's what's being done at this rally, which would make us foundational black Americans look to rally to start making our own demands from our own government by picking our own politicians, because it's an insult that this so-called majority black city council with a black city council speaker and a black mayor here in New York City isn't looking to go out here and look to make the interest of foundational black Americans a priority. It's an insult that foundational black Americans like Jordan Neely, he couldn't get those debit cards that Eric Adams gave to migrants in an experimental program. I mean, Jordan Neely, who died at the hands of Daniel Penny, he could have benefited from those debit cards and basically been able to get the money to eat. Moreover, many of our black veterans who fought in wars like Desert Storm, the conflict in Afghanistan, the conflict in Iraq, those black men and women who served our country, they should be put to the front of the line, because those foundational black Americans who served this country, they're the ones who deserve the tangibles of service as related to their service in this country. But instead of looking out for those who serve this country, we look to support those who entered the country illegally. And primarily the only reason they want to do this is because they want to virtue signal to show how they're not like Donald Trump. But by showing how they're not like Donald Trump, ironically, they show how much they serve the system of white supremacy. These black politicians like Eric Adams and the New York City Council, they show how they basically serve white supremacy, because you look to push black people to the bottom. And as you push those foundational black Americans to the bottom, they look at the party of blue and see somebody they don't need to vote for, because if a citizen cannot receive services from their country and their politicians, they're going to look at those politicians and say, in the next election, which is coming in 2025, that they don't need to vote for those politicians because those politicians aren't serving we the people. Because again, it's disrespectful to foundational black Americans that these people who entered the country illegally, and many of which were not eligible for any sort of benefit, can have the audacity to have a meeting with the city council to demand our tangibles for themselves, and believe that they have a right to demand our tangibles that they didn't vote for, they were not even eligible to vote for. They want to demand better treatment, and foundational black Americans like Jordan Neely couldn't get to make any demands of their government. No, guys like Jordan Neely, he doesn't have a right to make a demand, but someone who has a right to, who doesn't even live in this country, isn't a citizen, can make a demand. And that just shows you how Arkham certified New York City's political process has become, that American citizens, as related to a jab mandate, could not go to City Hall to make demands. Guys like Kyrie Irving couldn't go to City Hall to make a demand that this mandate that basically kept a million New Yorkers out of a job who were paying taxes couldn't get this mandate lifted, which was arbitrarily there because the mayor basically wanted to clout chase, even though the entire world had basically walked away from this shot. I mean, the entire world had walked away from this shot, but this mayor used it to oppress foundational Black Americans, but he won't, and his city council wouldn't do anything for foundational Black Americans to give us a meeting. No, wouldn't do anything tangible for foundational Black Americans, but this motherfucker and this fucked up city council, they can go out here and meet with people who aren't even Black American citizens, and the media can call them Black Africans, but these Black Africans, again, want to put themselves in a buffer group in front of Black people, and again, that's an insult to all of us Black voters, and we need to remember this on Election Day, and we need to remember this because if we cannot get tangible service from our government and the politicians who are a part of it, then it's time for us to pick some new candidates and put a real Black agenda in place that will serve foundational Black Americans here in New York City. Now, if you want to pick up some of my positive Black fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the books of the ISIS series, the Esteem series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my Black sorority novel, The Thetas, my Black vampire novel, Eternal Night, and my Black business novel, A Recipe for Success, you can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find those books at other online booksellers like the iBookstore, Google Play, Walmart, and Target. And if you want to see me make more videos about New York and the sad state of affairs it's in, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, ISIS Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Pre-order your copy of ISIS Dark Incubus at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this all-new Esteem series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in digital format at Amazon.com, Google Play, Draft to Digital, and other digital booksellers, or pick up your paperback copy on May 24th. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.